You beat a big name, you get a big name. Debuting back in June, it was the Hillman out of Tajikistan. Mohamed Naimov gets that second round knockout win over Jamie Mullarkey, and with a little bit of clink in your pocket, $50K, Naimov now gets moved down into his natural weight class of featherweight to take on the forever prospect. He's 30 years old. He's got what? Like over 20 fights, and he's still considered a prospect. The man is Nathaniel Wood. Matt, this is a big time fight. When you look at it for Mohamed Naimov, we had a lot of things to say before his debut against Jamie Mullarkey. None of them negative, but what a giant win he was able to get there. Let's have a look at Mohamed Naimov. I mean, Mohamed Naimov, his entire pro career spent at featherweight. The last time he competed at lightweight, it was a one-off in his amateur career, and he weighed a juicy 151.5. So Mohamed Naimov, not necessarily the biggest guy that you know, but you should know about him because back when he was competing in Taekwondo, pure Taekwondo, the 17, 16-year-old class at 69 kgs, he placed first in the entire world. And if you're an MMA fan, you know the Taekwondo-based fighters that made it really high up on the overall scale of things. Anthony Pettis, a champ. Benson Henderson, a champ. Matt's favorite fighter, James Muntasri, 5th degree black
shout out.
No, and Chris Barnett as well. He has a Taekwondo base. But Matt, I found it really interesting. I mean, when you draw parallels out of Naimov's game to a guy like Guram Kutataladze, a lot of big combinations in the pocket, a really, really streaky right cross that Naimov will throw. He was able to drop Murad in his Titan FC fight after he was on Dana White's Contender Series. And we'll talk all about that Contender Series fight. But I really did have a lot of fun watching the tape. I think a lot of people are going to pick apart Naimov's record because overall, if you add everything up, combined pro opponent record, 40, 22, and 2, that's not that bad. But if you take away the Colin Anglin fight, which was a loss, and you take away the Olivier Murad loss, who ended up on Contender Series and won a fight himself, it's actually 29, 21, and 2. So it's not really the greatest. His last win, a 34-second knockout over a 4-3 fighter in Dylan Schultz. And in that one, he lands an Emily Ducati over Danielle Taylor head kick, and then he finishes it up with ground and pound. This guy's a really impressive fighter. What did you make of the tape when you went back and watched some stuff from either Mohamed Naimov or, as you might see it out there on the websites, Mohamed John Naimov?
Always Naimov, you know, I'll just stick with that. Now, for Naimov, and this is my separate point, I think there could be two versions of him in the UFC, because if you watch him based on some of the offense he is able to land, he could be a really good offensive fighter if he is able to still continue to make progressions throughout kind of his 28, 29, age 30 seasons, if you will, to put it into baseball terms. But for Naimov, I like how heavy he is when he is able to get into some of those top positions. We have seen some wrestling, and I do like the striking, but this is my only critique I would have with his striking. I'm curious if you came away with the same thing. His hands, good. His kicks are good. But he's not a fighter who's going to throw a bunch of boxing combinations that are all that fluid and then use the kicks. He's someone who will throw hands and then throw kicks and less blend the two together. If he was able to blend the two together a little more, I think I would find him, you know, at least finding more areas to land offense in this fight.
I don't know. I mean, that's kind of the thing. If you go back and you watch Naimov fights, where does he excel? It's in that Thai clinch, which I know I talked about him being a Taekwondo fighter, but when he gets the Thai clinch, he lands big elbows. He lands big, dirty boxing combinations, huge knees to the body. And if you do consider it when he's out at space, it's all the way in, it's all the way out. Is it going to be boxing? Is it going to be the kicks? But the thing that I looked at, like, he has all the pieces. I mean, his takedown defense is obviously his detriment. You saw that in the Colin Anglin fight, the 10-8 third round that he was up against in that one. He was a minus 300 favorite in that fight against Anglin. Anglin a plus 250, just like his countryman Muin Gafurov, who's on this card. He was a minus 450 over Chad Anheliger, both guys losing. But if you do consider it, I mean, takedown defense will cost Naimov. When he's a better grappler, he will go for takedowns. When he gets hit on the feet, and he got hit hard in that Anglin fight in the third round, he started shooting some panic takedowns, got them defended. If he's better than you on the ground, he's going to beat you. But if he's not as good as you on the ground, well, then, yeah, that's where we can see some deficiencies. And when it came to his striking defense too, it's a little bit piecemeal. Like he moves his hands quite a bit. He blocks really well. But when he's blocking, he doesn't move his head, or he's moving his head on the outside, and then his feet stay planted to then throw some more offense and counters. So it's great, and he is a very, very fun striker. I know we talked about Mohamed Gafurov, and his last win was that spinning heel kick within a phone booth, but you look at the kicks, you look at the overall striking prowess of a guy like Naimov. He is a lot of fun, and even back when he had his last lightweight fight, that was with a promotion called Real MMA in Las Vegas in 2017. Even though that's his last experience at lightweight, the main event of that card, MMA media member Rodney James Edgar of Combat Press fighting UFC welterweight now, Joshua Quinlan. So crazy to see guys coming from the regional scene ending up in the UFC. I mean, the other thing for Naimov, you will see it out there representing Elevation MMA. He had Corey Sandhagen in his corner against Murad in that fight. So out on Monday night of the fight week was Guram Kutateladze. Mohamed Naimov takes that fight on really short notice. All three judges' scorecards. Maliki wins the first round. Maliki's pressuring in the second round, bit down on his mouthpiece, ate a crazy shot. Naimov on top, finishes up with the ground and pound, gets the win. And he's a really interesting case because he was the fourth fighter out of Tajikistan that debuted this year. We also have the other fighter out of Tajikistan on this card, or one of four, being Moin Gafurov, a little bit higher up. But when you look at Naimov and what he was able to do in that fight against Maliki, you knew he had the power. You knew the wrestling chops could come into play, whether for better or for worse, like you saw against Colin Anglin, as we said. But when you look at it for Naimov, now he's taking on the former bantamweight champ over with Cage Warriors. And if you look at it for Nathaniel Wood, 7-2 in the UFC. You remember the fight of the night loss against Casey Kenny, the knockout loss to John Dodson. But for Wood, this move up to 145, it's been very, very interesting. Again, second fight for him in 2023. He dropped Andre Fili. Well, he got dropped by Andre Fili, and we mentioned it before the Fili fight. It feels like Wood left a piece of him with Cage Warriors, but he gets into some slobber knockers in his own.
And when he moved up to 145, I figured, hey, what are the two big holes in his game, right? He can tire, but he throws a lot of volume, and we've seen him get hit and cracked by big shots. So I assumed moving up 10 pounds in weight class was at least going to help him deal with both of those issues, but it really has only helped him in one of them, and I am glad that you kind of started it that way, because we have seen him get hurt and rocked at 145, and that's what does concern me in this matchup against Naimov. I was trying to think of an NBA comp for Nathaniel Wood, and to me it's Julius Randle. Every time you believe in Julius Randle, he'll just start to play really bad and like shoot threes, and you're like, what are you doing, Julius? Just like go to the rim, you're big and strong. And Nathaniel Wood, every time it does look like he's coasting to an easy 10-9 round, right? It's getting to the end of it, there's like 30 seconds left. He'll have that weird lapse of judgment that does help his opponent get back into the fight, and it's really happened throughout his career, and that's what worries me in a matchup like this, because I do think Nathaniel Wood's probably the faster fighter in this matchup. For all the negatives about him, he's a very accurate fighter, he throws a very nice output. When he's able to get dirty, and that's the problem with Nathaniel Wood's fighting style at this stage of his career. When he gets dirty, he can screw his opponents up. When he gets the elbows involved, the uppercuts, that's all great. But the problem is, that puts him in the direct line of fire of his opponent, and if Naimov's able to crack him with some of those hooks on the exits, he could easily put Nathaniel Wood out.
When you saw it out of Wood against Fili, you saw the jab and then the overhand right behind it, but when Fili was able to close the distance in the second round, left hook wobbles Wood, he gets into a tie clinch, the knees from Fili, they drop Wood down, and then Wood shows really good resolve to win that third round. But it really is a tricky fight, especially when you consider the lines on a lot of these throughout the card. And it's something that we don't touch on all that often, but Nathaniel Wood is a 3-1 favorite in this one. So that might be a little bit of a surprise to some folks. You can see him over on his Instagram, Great Britain Top Team. He's been a staple over there. The man in the hat, not Chuck Mindenhall. One Punch Brad Pickett, but you see him over there with boxing coach Barry putting in the work, throwing those hooks. Naimov, the underdog in this one. We have a look at the Tapology votes, Matt. Surprise to us there to you. I'm going to say over under 75% Nathaniel Wood.
I think they're going to be over.
Those fans, you know what? It's close, but I mean, 1,176 total votes, 82% Wood, 85% by decision for the 18% that have Naimov, 39% by decision, 49% by knockout. A lot of people may be swayed by the knockout that you saw out of Naimov his last time out against Jamie Mullarkey. I can see Naimov struggling a little bit with the pressure of Wood, with the volume of Wood, with maybe even the wrestling attack of Nathaniel Wood. But for Naimov, you know the power's there. You know his resolve. But again, I have this bad thing and bad taste in my mind of 10-8 third round against Colin Anglin. That one's always going to stay there, even with the crazy knockout that he got his last time out. So for me in this one, I do have Nathaniel Wood, but this should be a really, really interesting fight. And obviously, a great chance to kind of seed yourself in the division of featherweight for Mohamed Naimov.
Oh, he gets to jump the line if he beats Nathaniel Wood. That's a big name to have on your resume. And I think This is how I look at the fight. I think Nathaniel Wood's going to win the fight until he doesn't. He's more likely to win by decision. He can win by knockout. He can win by submission. But at any point throughout the fight, because I think there is enough of a body of work at this point to say, hey, Nathaniel Wood, when he gets hit by big shots, can be susceptible to going down, and Naimov has legitimate power. I know Jimmy Mullarkey's been knocked out a few times at this stage of his career, but Nathaniel Wood has some question marks surrounding his durability, so I've got Wood in the matchup, but this should be a really fun fight.
Both guys with bonuses in their debuts, Matt. People remember Nathaniel Woods against, Nova União's own Johnny Eduardo, a guy who made 3 UFC video games, but in this one, both of us going with the forever prospect, Nathaniel Wood, to get the win. Some big-time fights in this card, Matt. The next one, Money Mike Breeden taking on Anshul Jubli, the road to UFC winner. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say. Let's get into it.